Hi. Today we are going to be thinking about story problems in our work, and I wanted to refresh for you the things I think are important when you're thinking about how to solve a story problem. So, first of all, you need to read story problems like they're actually a story because they are. And you need to think about who's the main character, and you need to think about what is the problem, and you need to think about how can I solve it. So, when I'm reading a story problem, I'm visualizing, sometimes I'm drawing pictures, I'm really trying to be in the story, no matter how weird the story is. Okay, then you record your information as you go along. There's important pieces of information that's usually connected to a number, but not always. And you need to pay attention to what you think are crucial pieces. And then you consider what your operations are and you think about how best to solve it. And sometimes kids do this thing where they pull out the numbers and then they think about what they have been taught most recently and they just use that operation. That operation is not necessarily the right operation, so we can't just go by what you've most recently learned. We have to stick with thinking it through. And finally, I like to check my work by trying to solve it in a different way or making an estimation or doing something that helps me to figure out if it makes sense for that answer to be that answer. So we're going to try problem 65 from your workbook. And the problem reads, trees are planted along a road that is 2 kilometers and 5 meters long. So I feel like that 2 kilometers and 5 meters long is an important piece of information. So down here, I'm going to draw my road, and then I'm going to label it with the 2 meters and the 2 kilometers, and 50 meters length. The next thing is 11 trees are planted, and those are trees, in an equal distance apart along this road. So that part is important too. It's an equal distance. And then finally, what is the distance in meters between each tree? So that question, what is the distance? That comes right down here. That is what I need to answer. So that is the problem in my story. And I don't really know, it's kind of sketchy, but I think the trees and the road are probably my main characters. So that part's a little bit, but anyway, we're gonna keep going. So now I'm looking at my picture and I am thinking about those trees and I am thinking about that distance. And the first thing that comes to my mind is if I'm gonna try to take some amount and separate it out, basically I'm going to be dividing the whole road up into smaller sections that are in between my trees. So if I'm going to divide this distance, I really want it to all be the same. It needs to either all be in kilometers or all be in meters. And if I put it all into meters, I'm pretty sure it will work because meters can be inside of a kilometer, but I won't have any leftovers with one being kilometers and one being meters. So I'm going to convert. So let's think about that. So if I have 50 meters, then that can just stay. I want my meters. So I'm going to pause that part. And I'm just going to deal with these 2 kilometers. And I want to make an equivalent measurement in meters. So then I'm going to follow my method of the large measurement and the smaller measurement. And that means the number next to the larger one will be smaller. And so this one will be a larger number. So now I know I'm going to multiply. And then I'm going to take my 2 that's in the problem and I'm going to multiply by the distance between kilometers and meters. And here is something that I have been saying a lot in my meetings. I really think it's valuable to memorize kilo equals 1,000. And we know that meters are the standard. So meters, there's meters are equal to 1 and kilometers are equal to 1,000. So there's 1,000 meters in every kilometer. So the distance is 1,000. I'm going to multiply by 1,000, and that tells me that 2 kilometers is worth 2,000 meters. Okay, so I've started out and I combined my measurement here. I'm about to combine my measurement. I'm gonna add that 50 meters. And now I am working with only meters. Let's see here, I'll correct my, and I have 2,050 meters. 2,050 meters. And now I can go back and I can think about equal distances among trees. And I like to just make sure, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 distances that I am figuring out here. There's 11 trees, but there's 10 spaces in between the trees. And I'm thinking about that for a moment, thinking, do I divide by 10 or do I divide by 11? And then I'm taking it to a smaller level and I'm thinking, if it's just you and me, there's 2 of us, but there's only 1 distance in between us. And if I'm dealing with the distances, then it's that 1 that I would be thinking about, not the 2 of us, but the 1 distance. So that means I'm going to be working with 10 equal distances, 10 equal chunks of the road. Chunks is more interesting than distance. 10 equal distances. And I have 2,050 meters, and I need to divide it into 10 equal chunks. And so I'm going to write that. 2,050 meters divided by 10. 10 equal chunks. And I know that I am going to make it smaller when I divide, and smaller means that I'm moving my decimal point to the left. I'm moving my decimal point 1 space to the left. And I know my decimal point sits at the end of the number, but it's not written in. And I move it 1 space to the left, and I get 205 meters as my answer. So now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to think about this, and I'm at that place where I need to check my work. Can I do a different operation or some kind of estimate to see if that makes sense? And I'm going to say, well, 205 is pretty close to 200. So if I just count by 200s, I can write the 205 in between each of these trees. But I'm just going to count by 200 because I can do that. And I can probably count by 205s, but that will take me a long time. So I'm going to count 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, 1,600, 1,800, 2,000. So if I count with estimates, then I am getting up to about 2,000, and then it will be a little bit more because of all those 5s that I ignored, and that makes sense because those 5s would probably add up to about 50. So my answer is in the 2,000 range both times, so I think that makes sense to cover that whole distance. So then it does make sense for the 2,000 or to the 205 to be the answer. And the last thing I'm going to do is check. Over here I wrote down the distance in meters, and then I have labeled it with meters. So I have an answer that I think makes sense. And today you are going to work in your math journals, and there are pages and pages and pages in your math journals, and you're probably not going to do every single one of those problems, but you're going to set a reasonable amount of time, and you're going to work through some, and then you're going to set another reasonable amount of time and work through some more. And I think a minimum number of story problems that you should accomplish is 4, and I would suggest that you could probably get further along than that. So why don't you go get started? Good luck with everything.